ReasonConf is brought to you by our gold sponsors Ahrefs and Chain Street.
So hi everyone. So contrary to other presentation today, I am not going to talk too much about Reason or even web programming. The truth is I've never done any web programming myself. However, I work at GenStreet, and at GenStreet we have been using OCaml for 17 years. And I thought it could be interesting to share a bit our experience so that you can see the perspective from a long-time user of the language. So I will talk a little bit about why we choose OCaml, how we made it work inside GenStreet, like how it benefits us. And I will talk a little bit about the open source community and how we interact with it, because the community is an important aspect of a language. So, but before I start, I'm just going to say 2 words about GenStreet, just in case you don't know too much what it is about. So we are a quantitative trading firm, which means that we use mathematical methods to find a trading strategy, and then we write a system that automates this. And we put a strong focus on technology. So in fact, we consider ourselves as much as a technology firm as a trading firm. And we are the largest industrial user of OCaml with millions of lines of code. So I don't remember the exact number, but I think nowadays it's about 10 million lines of code, which is a lot of OCaml. We use it absolutely everywhere, from like small script, system administration, network system, trading system, everything. Everything is written in OCaml. And it's quite nice to have everybody in the firm using the same language, because it encourages a lot of sharing between teams. On another parenthesis before I start, so I just wanted to talk about Reason and OCaml, just to make it clear what is the distinction. So in general, when I think of OCaml, I think of the original syntax of the language, so like the thing you see on this poster, and compilation to native application. Reason, when I think about Reason, it's more like the JavaScript-like syntax with compilation to JavaScript. So then you have a lot of combination. You can use a Reason syntax to compile to native, etc. But I think these are the most commonly used combination. So in the rest of the talk, there are a few code examples, and I wrote them in Reason syntax, since it's a Reason conference. So let's get started. Why OCaml? So 17 years ago, OCaml was a very unusual choice. It was very much different from other mainstream languages, such as C++ or Java. There were not many people using it, not many companies using it. And effectively, if you were choosing it, well, you kind of had to do a lot of work yourself. However, OCaml is a language that provides very strong guarantees, and that's what we liked. So I'm going to develop a bit more about these guarantees. So you probably know about it if you have used Reason, but OCaml has a strong type system, which means that it will not let you use a value of the wrong type at the wrong place. And this fact eliminates a lot of bugs statically before you execute your program, which is very nice because you spend less time debugging things in production. So types can be hard to work with. However, OCaml has a very nice feature. It has type inference, which means that you pretty much never have to write the types. OCaml can guess them for you. So here you see I wrote a function. I didn't write any types, but still OCaml is able to guess that this function must take an integer and return an integer. So that makes writing OCaml a lot easier, even though you have all these types. Additionally, OCaml lets you do generic programming, so write functions that work over a wide range of different values, of different types. And this is thanks to a polymorphism. So here in this example, I wrote a function that returns the length of a list. This function makes no assumption about what's inside my list. So OCaml recognizes that and tells me that my function takes a list with elements of any kind. So another aspect of all these safety guarantees is that OCaml provides a very good way to check that you have handled all the cases in your program. It both makes it easy to precisely define all the different steps of your program and to make sure that you handle all the cases, which means that you will never have a problem at runtime where your program either crashes or behaves in a really unexpected way because you forget to handle a case. Not only it checks that, but it also gives you an example of a case you haven't handled when you forgot. And it's not only about exhaustivity, it's like the feature behind it, like pattern matching is really powerful and allows for a very nice programming style. Another aspect is the performance guarantee. So OCaml is a statically compiled language that generally produces fast code. It can produce code that can be easily like as much as 100 times faster than what you would get in more dynamic language such as JavaScript, Python, etc. One of the main reasons is that it makes a lot of decisions statically when you compile the program. So just to give you an example, what happens when you write x plus y? So for example, what happens in JavaScript? Well, during the execution of your program, the JavaScript engine will look at this and say, okay, you want me to add x and y, so what is x, what is y? Maybe x is a string and y is a string, or in this case you mean string concatenation. Or maybe x is an integer and y is an integer, in this case it's integer addition. Or maybe they are of different types and then like the behavior defined on the language. But all this is done at runtime. So it's additional work that you do during the execution of your program. While with a statically compiled language such as OCaml, all this is decided when you compile the program. And at runtime, you just go straight to the right operation. And you can easily have factor 100 for big programs. It also has like a small memory footprint. So OCaml does automatic memory management. You never have to manually allocate and free your objects. And it means that it has to keep a bit more information at runtime, but what it keeps is very low overhead. So effectively, it's quite easy to make programs that scale very well and that don't consume all your memory. And so this is quite nice to have these guarantees because that means that you can write code and you have almost effortlessly, it will run fast and not use a ton of memory. And it's quite nice. For example, if you write, so it might not always matter depending on what you do, but let's say if writing a backend, for example, if it goes 10 times faster, then maybe that means that you can handle 10 times more users. Another interesting thing about OCaml is that it allows for various programming styles. You can use the more classic imperative style, which means that you define data structures that you can change, that are mutable. And as your program goes, it will change this data structure. Or you can use a more functional style. So in general, when we talk about functional programming, we mean two things. First of all, the fact that you can manipulate function as easily as you manipulate any kind of values, such as integers or string. You can take function as argument, you can build bigger function, return them as a result, etc. And also the idea that you write your code in a more pure style. And what we mean by that is that it's functions that are closer to the mathematical notion of function, i.e. for a given input, you have always the same output, which is not true when you have global variables, etc., because you can have several different outputs. And why is that important? Is that because it makes it a lot easier to reason about your program. So to give you an example, at GenStreet, we do a lot of code review. So in fact, I would say we read a lot more code than we write code. We are quite paranoid about this because we write programs that go on the financial market and trade with our money, so we really want them to behave correctly. And so me, very often when I read code, if I see that something that I know could be written in a functional way is written in a more imperative way, I will always focus my attention on it because that's pretty much always where the bugs are. Especially when you have people who are new to functional programming, they tend to still use the more imperative aspect of OCaml, such as inters and usual, and that's always where you find the bugs, because simply it is a lot harder to reason about all the different configurations of your program when things can change over time. All right, so when you consider all this, basically OCaml has strong typing, which gives you strong guarantees, but it also has type inference and polymorphism, which makes it easy natural to write programs. It is fast, it has low memory overhead. It's still easy to use, there are languages that will provide more guarantees, but they are much harder to program with. It's a little nicely packaged, it comes with a lot of old features, and it's one of these languages that is good for everything. And when you think about all that, well, it's like why wouldn't you use OCaml, right? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And that's a choice that we made 17 years ago, and it has worked like really well for us. So it was a really good choice. And before I continue, I just wanted to make a small parenthesis. So given all I have said before, effectively, OCaml is good at writing bad code. So not that it is a good idea to write bad code, but when you have all this like safety provided by the system, code you write is generally fast, etc., you can just rely on it to program in a kind of a fast way, you know. So if you have written OCaml or Reason for a long enough time, you probably had this experience where you had an idea, you wrote some types, wrote some function that deal with these types, and the compiler is not happy, it gives you some type errors. And instead of just like really thinking about what's happening, you just like mechanically try to please the typer, like just modify things until they fit. And in general, at the end, well, it works, which is quite nice. It's like a very good short-term benefit, basically. And there is this, there is this saying in OCaml that saying that if your program types, then surely it must be correct, which is a gross exaggeration, but in practice, it often applies. And finally, one aspect where OCaml has helped as well the business is for hiring. So at the beginning, when we started advertising in the OCaml community, we got a few, there were quite a lot of good people. We are people who have been really helpful for the company, so it was a good deal. Although it nowadays it also good, gives a good reason for people to come and work at GenStreet. It attracts people from, I suppose, various functional backgrounds. And the idea is that if like you are good programmers and you have the choice between many companies and they will all use like more classic technology such as C++, etc., then you might often be interested by the ones that will use this kind of language. And that still works quite well nowadays. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about OCaml at GenStreet, how it benefits us in our day-to-day development. So at GenStreet, we have one large mono repository. So instead of having many small code source repositories like you would have on GitHub, for instance, we have one massive repository when we put all our code. In general, people do that because it avoids having to deal with versioning. One commit basically is all the versioning you need. It gives you one consistent state of the world where everything works together. So that's one less thing to care about. And OCaml, it makes it really easy to manage basically this code base. Because over time, you will always want to change things, right? Maybe like a design you chose 2 years ago is no longer the right one, or maybe you want to change an original mistake, etc. So it's quite important to be able to easily refactor your code. And with OCaml, you can do a lot of type-guided refactoring. And what that means is that, let's say you want to change a function in the standard library. You want to do a breaking change. You just go ahead, you do it, then you compile the whole code base, and the compiler will fail everywhere where you need to upgrade your code. And just like this, you can go ahead, do a breaking change, and upgrade the whole world. And that is something we do all the time. We have done it a lot. We even started automating it recently, like someone wrote a tool that would listen to compilation error from the compiler. And basically, you imagine you build your code base in a polling mode. So that means that when the file changes, you automatically rebuild them and you continue. And on the side, you have this tool that will look at the errors and go and patch your code. And as you go, well, so you get an error, it's patched, and you continue, etc., until you build the whole thing. And the user can also participate to this, right? It can also modify the code for like cases that are not automatically handled. And just like this, you have this kind of assisted refactoring. And that works really well in practice. It's a very nice experience. So another aspect of OCaml that we use a lot is PPX. So PPX, it's a way to do like the principled way of doing code generation. So it's a bit like a preprocessor, something that you, like a transformation you apply on your source code before giving it to the compiler. One thing specific about PPX is that it works not on the text, but on the abstract representation of the language, which means that you can do like much more precise transformation. Like the way it works is that you have this special syntax in OCaml, so square bracket at or square bracket %, that essentially are compile time function. So when you compile your code, you will evaluate this function. It will produce some more OCaml code that will be inserted instead of this special syntax to produce more OCaml code that will be just compiled as usual. And why is it nice is that it basically reduces the source code size. So you often have, like, when you program, this very mechanical function. So for example, maybe you want to produce a JSON output, and you write always the same code. And so with APX, you just like formalize once and for all the way it works. You write in OCaml a PPX plugin, basically. And then you can use it everywhere in your code base to like replace all this mechanical code. And effectively, well, both it enforces convention, which are, it is good when you have a big code base, but it reduces your code base, like the size of your code base. And effectively, when you have a big, like a big code base, like the cost of maintenance, it is proportional to the amount of source code you have. So it's quite important to keep it under control. And then another aspect is that it's a really good system to do refactorings as well. Let's imagine you want to rename a function. Then maybe you can use like the find and replace function of your editor, or you can use sed to modify it everywhere in your project. But you can only do very simple transformation, right? If you want to maybe swap the argument of a function, you can't do that with text processing. What you need is something that really understands the syntax of the language, and that's exactly what PPX provides. So over the years, like, we have written a lot of small tools that basically scan the language, try to find a pattern we want to rewrite, compute a patch, apply it to the source code, and then once you have written this tool, you just apply it to the whole code base, like to this hundreds of thousands of files, and in a few seconds, you have just refactored your code base just like this. And then while you compile to make sure that it's correct. And yeah, that's something that we have benefited a lot from as well. So just like many other companies, like we have quite a streamlined workflow. So I'm not going to develop too much on this because it's not very specific to OCaml. If you are interested, you can look on our blog. We talk a lot about it. Like one interesting thing is that it is written entirely in OCaml, and it's all integrated in the editor, so mostly in Emacs and a bit Vim, because that's what we use at GenStreet. But you can do everything from like editing the code, code review, building, getting various reports, all in the editor, which is a nice experience. So finally, deployment. So there's not a lot to say here. I almost forgot to talk about it, but since this year's theme is road to production, I thought I should talk about it. So in OCaml, you have very small runtime requirements. Like the runtime of OCaml is just a very small library that you can simply link inside your program. So in fact, we always statically link it inside programs. So in general, the deployment story in OCaml is that you build an executable, you drop it on the NFS, and that's it, it's deployed. So sometimes some teams in the firm have a bit more advanced needs, so they will just write some specific service in OCaml. But in general, it's all quite simple. The same like for running services, like there is nothing really fancy. I guess the idea is that once you have put so much effort, into making sure you are writing good software, in general, things tend to just work, right? Occasionally, when it breaks, we will just debug, find the problem, fix it, and just move on. Like I suppose there are like two approaches basically to building a robust and a reliable system. You can take a system that you don't necessarily trust or you don't really necessarily understand, and then you will like wrap it with like layers of stuff, just to make sure it won't like scramble away or explode. Or you can just build like reliable software right from the start, and that's basically what we do in general. So that's all for this part. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the open source side of things. That's a subject that I care about a lot. I have been active in the OCaml community for about 13 years, and I started at GenStreet about 6 years ago. And naturally, I worked a bit on this question of releasing our code, etc. And it can be quite difficult to understand like how a company such as GenStreet, can interact with the community, and for it, like in a way that it is valuable for both the company and the community. And so it has been a long process. Personally, like for me, like the way I see it is that when you can contribute, like work well with the community, you get software that are very well polished and sustainable. So what I mean by that is that when you do open source, like because you are going to show like your code to the world, in general, you really want to polish every aspect of your software, write very good documentation, etc., etc. And it's not that you don't care about it in industry. You care about it a lot as well, but often you develop, like with a purpose, deadline, etc. And you don't always have time to reach this level of polishing. And effectively, when you talk to people, they will tell you, well, I wrote this library, I would like to add more features, etc., but now I have something else to do. Or you might have read somewhere that a company released something in open source, but before they released it, they cleaned up their code, because it's okay to write dirty code, but you don't want to show it to the world, right? On the other hand, if you develop in open source, like maybe you will release a software, and 2 years from now, you won't, maybe you don't have the time anymore to maintain it. It's a bit sad because people use it, etc. And if you bring like the more like industrial aspect, you get this, I think, sustainability over time. Because effectively, if you use something for your business, and there is an upgrade to do, like you're not going to think about it, you are going to do it, because you need your business to keep going. If you need to make things scale, you are going to do it, etc. And when you bring the two together, it works really well. So obviously, to get all these benefits, I think to really make it work, you need to really play the game properly. You need to develop completely openly, have an open development process, make it possible to integrate people from the community, have a clear decision process, etc. And you also need to use like a liberal license. So I'm quite proud to say it, but at Genstreet, all the software we publish and the software that we have completely opened, it's all under MIT license, and we use a developer certificate of origin for our contribution, which is a very light process. Before that, we are using a CLA, which was a bit more heavy, and we made the change. So for a company like us, it's a bit difficult to make this change. Like we had to talk with people who know a bit more about law, etc. It took quite some time, but in the end, we did it, and it works really well. So if I guess if you are a company and you don't know like what you can follow our example and use these licenses. And obviously, you don't want to develop everything this way, right? There is a lot of things for which you want to keep total control. But I think for the very basic building blocks, it's quite important to share it and develop them in an open fashion. Because obviously, when everyone uses the same base, right, build the system on the same base, it is much, much easier to like share things, contribute both ways, and communicate. So just to give an example, we did that with like the build system. So a few years ago, so about 8 years ago, something like this, we developed a build system called Jenga, which was developed for the purpose of building very large cost base inside Genstreet. And it worked. We also published it in open source, but I think it never really convinced anybody. It wasn't very portable, it has a lot of dependency, etc., etc. And then, about 2.5 years ago, we released a small tool called JBuilder, which is now called Dune, which was like a little sister application, for which the purpose was to make it easy to publish our code outside. And well, because it was portable, small, very fast, people got interested, and then we moved entirely the development to GitHub. Then people started joining, contributing, etc. And nowadays we get a software that is, I think, very well polished. It's fully portable. You can do very like advanced things such as cross compilation, etc. Like all the things people need. You get a very general tool basically, which works better, I think, for everyone. Like we are planning to switch to it this year, and I think it was basically a good investment. Okay, so that's the end of my talk. I'll be happy to take questions. I'll be happy to take questions during the break as well. Unfortunately, I won't stay here tonight. I have to fly back to the UK. But I just wanted to say that I've been really happy to come here and talk to many of you. I'm quite passionate about OCaml, and it's very nice to see more people getting interested by the language. Thanks.